Welcome back to another edition of the Sports Tech Atlanta Seed Talk. Just me today, solo Mack out here, kicking it with you right before the calendar changes over to October. Hope everybody is doing well. It's going to be a little bit more sports oriented. Just get out a few things from the weekend. Ryder Cup. Headed into baseball playoffs, basketball about to start up. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Media day happened today. And we'll hit a little bit on sports technology news towards the end here. But yeah, let's start with the Ryder Cup, which I've always loved the Ryder Cup. It's just like I don't think you get enough of that in golf, that 1v1 and team aspect. Obviously, what Liv was trying to kind of go after in terms of the team aspect part of it, have done it. They've done it in a really poor way, right? I know it's on CW. I know one watches, but it's so cool to see people. Obviously, for us, for our country, and then Europe, just as a whole, banding together and playing and having the pride for where you come from is always super cool. And it was a tough scene. Tough scene. There's I think a myriad of ways you could discuss what we saw. I think at the end of the day, you saw what we've continued to see post COVID and really over the last 8 years, right? I've seen some people say barstoolification. I don't know if that's the right word. You can throw them into that, like this driving kind of force around like younger people that have this notion that there's no consequences to what they do and their words and their actions, and have really pushed back on the idea of like decorum and like what we know to be present, like how you should show up for people, how you just you have like a social contract, like how you should be in public spaces. And that's all been kind of erased. It's also been erased because of who our president is, right? And how that's, like I said, that started I think 2016, so I guess 9 years ago now. So it was weird to see. Like, there's no other way to get around that. Like, as a fan of golf, I'm a Rory fan. It was weird. It was like tough to like watch that, and then also like not you want the USA team to win because I'm American, but then you kind of were like, well, shit, like, fuck. I hope they, as a competitor, right? You're like, I hope these guys are able to push through that, especially for Rory. You're like, you could tell by day three, his fifth round of golf there in a couple in 3 days, like he was mentally exhausted. I think he was more mentally exhausted than physically. I think just mentally having to battle through all of that. His wife, I guess, after the Zapruder film, right? Maybe the glass was hit out of the guy's hand. Regardless, like a fucking cup was hit his wife's hat. She's having to deal with insults all day as she's walking the course with her husband. Just ridiculous, right? And I thought Rory said it really well. I mean, it's like you didn't, even on the broadcast, you really couldn't hear people just like praising the USA guys. It was more about like, we want to talk shit to the European guys. And listen, I get like I said it a couple times on threads and everything. You want to like that's cool. Talk a little ish, right? Boo a little bit. Try to say something kind of funny. That's like that's clever. But when you're just like hurling BS insults or calling people names or like cursing at people, I don't know what you're kind of expecting people to do, right? They're going to come back at you. Obviously, Rory just kind of got fed up, started cursing back at people. I totally get that. And so my only thing to that though, and I do, and I agree with what Rory said in the post game presser, like post match presser, or whatever. Golf has a decorum. Golf has, and it should, right? Like I said earlier, like there's a decorum to golf. Like when you walk in between the ropes for a golf event, Like there's a certain, you know, even your attire should adhere to what that event is, right? Some events are a little bit more panache than others. And so yeah, I just think like I think it was more than tough to see them go through that. Now on the backside of that, what I was about to get to there is like I imagine I like, you know, I've seen some things of what was said, but I think it's then kind of funny as like a former baseball player where you hear crazy shit, especially in the outfield. But then like I don't know if you've ever been close for like a LeBron game. I've been fortunate a couple times, and our Draymond, like the shit they hear is ridiculous on so many levels, and a lot of it's racial, obviously, right? Because people suck. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just it's an interesting thing to think about in the context or like in the I guess the spectrum of what guys have to deal with. Again, the Rory and the European guys should not have had to deal with that, but I think it is interesting when you maybe put it into a vacuum, like what other athletes sometimes have to go through on a daily basis to be able to perform. So quick ad. Did you see the sweatshirt here? Check out Open Mondays golf if you're looking for some fall gear to round out your golf in 2025. Check them out. One of our great partners here at the Seed Talk podcast. Um, I've been marinating on this topic for a bit here. I was gonna have my buddy Micah Johnson, former MLB player turned artist and philanthropist, on. We our schedules could not connect over the weekend, and then I kind of wanted to get this out before the playoffs, so I'm gonna throw it out here. But as you see that scrolling by, is baseball no longer cool? And I really thought about this in the context of like Shohei Ohtani, right? And I know like Stephen A. Smith and First Take really control like a lot of times things like maybe pop on Twitter or Threads or Instagram or whatever, right? On social. And then those topics kind of show up from a TV perspective and then it stays in the ethos, right? In our conversation for like 24 to 48 hours, right? But baseball for some reason has really lost its luster. And Clayton Kershaw is retiring. Unbelievable career. Like truly one of the great pitchers really of his, you know, probably him, Verlander, Scherzer of this. DeGrom is close, but he's been so injured, right? You feel like Kershaw and Verlander are like the 1-2, depending on how you want to look at that, of the past, you know, 2 decades here. And I felt like I know it hit like people talked about it for a second. MLB tweeted out a couple videos, obviously, when he came out against the Mariners. But then you're like, when colossal people in the game retire, or in a game, right? Retire. There's typically this like I'll say we kind of mourn them, right? Like we have this period where we really go through everything that they've done and we talk about it and we dissect everything. And are they first ballot? Are they not first ballot? All and you baseball now is so regional, like you only really get that on MLB Network. You don't get these long conversations on ESPN or Fox Sports or any of that about or any of these podcasts about, you know, these great gigantic players of the game anymore. And then it makes me think like, is it because of the non-cool factor, or is it because the people that are kind of controlling what we do from a media perspective don't want to push baseball because it's not going to get the clicks? And there's probably some Venn diagram of like clicks to coolness and all that type of stuff, right? And it really made me think over the weekend, and then it made me think about this next generation, right? You're gonna have Mike Trout soon, Stanton, Judge are over 30, Harper's over 30. Like, what happens when those guys retire? And obviously, like they're not their performance is most likely going to start to decline. Trout's has already declined, and not gonna. I am gonna save my Mike Trout thing for later. Maybe I think after the playoffs, because it feels like we need to have a conversation there of like what he's been lately and like what that means for his career. But yeah, just I really and then in the terms of going back to the coolness of baseball, I thought about this like I'm a '90s kid, right? So baseball was so cool in the '90s, right? I have my hat backwards right now, as long as I think it looks better. But obviously, I grew up watching Ken Griffey Jr. He had his hat backwards all the time. Guys were in commercials, right? Even like Glavine and Maddox were in commercials with like Mark McGuire, and Pujols had a whole Nike line, right? I don't believe now, especially like because however Trout wants to be represented, I don't believe there's a guy with a true like Nike line anymore, right? There's Nike baseball still, but I don't think there's any guy that has I could be wrong there, but and that just goes to show you like where are we with the pantheon of baseball? Like, is it no longer and not is it no longer, like, will it continue to kind of decline and like what we think about in terms of coolness and like all the things? And that feels sad. That also feels like a weird place to be going, because on the other side, like viewership and attendance are all up for baseball, right? They've done people have really loved. I'm a little bit of a traditionalist and a purist because I played the game, but the pitch clock has worked in a lot of ways. Some of the new rules have worked, like the bigger bases, people being able to steal more. That's all worked, right? Putting more action into it, taking the shift out, which I think should have happened. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I'm curious where we go, right? Because in my opinion, Shohei Ohtani should be the biggest star in America. Like without it shouldn't be. Obviously we still got LeBron and everything, but LeBron's not the same. So, but yeah, more on that. We'll see if we can get Mike on, maybe talk a little bit more, really dive into that. I think it's an interesting topic, especially as we get into the playoffs here. Speaking of the playoffs, if you want to get into the game in terms of wagering on your favorite team, or just sprinkle a little money, check out Better Edge, especially for those of you in states like California that do not have access to some of the other platforms. If you sign up and use code CTalk, you can receive up to $500 from Better Edge after depositing your first deposit. So again, check out Better Edge with code CTalk for a chance to win up to $500. All right, before we do a little sports tech here quickly, got to talk about, again, I'm a Hawks fan. So always keep that in mind if you follow me on threads. I know NBA threads, all the things, but I'm a Hawks fan. But I'm a Steph guy. I'm going to say that again. I'm a Hawks fan, born and raised in Atlanta. That's my team. But Steph is my guy. It almost feels like malpractice for Steph being the Hall of Famer that he is and still being as good as he is. And malpractice for Kuminga, who I think, there's so many ways he could go. He's so young still. Obviously, his crazy athleticism, still trying to understand and learn the game and like where he fits into it. But it just feels like this partnership, this marriage has to come to an end here. And I think it'll happen before Christmas, right? Especially that's when a lot of teams, as you're close to the apron, can sign different players, right? That's why, like, take the Rockets when Van Vliet went down, everyone's like, oh, they'll just automatically sign Russell Westbrook or something. It's like, well, they can't because of like how the apron works, right? So those players don't become eligible until December, depending on where you are. The Warriors obviously having a couple max guys and Draymond making the money that he makes. They're in that weird kind of phase, right? In that first area of the apron, and so that's why they're trying to work through the fringes, trying to they've got commitments with like Al Horford, Melton, kind of waiting there, and they're really waiting on what Kuminga is going to do here. If I were Kaminga, I would take that 3 for, I think it's 40. I've seen a couple numbers. I would just take the 3 years, man. If you have a team, if they have a team option on you, like, it is what it is. Like, if you go do your thing, like, it's not gonna be a big deal. But I think for you, you want as much money as you can get, like, in total, and hope to go get a new team, go play your ass off, and then let's rework this thing. That's what I would do, right? Especially with the team and player options, right? So, yeah, it just feels like if you media day was today, there were a lot of comments. Steph, it felt like Steph was incredibly or incredulous, I should say, towards not towards Kaminga, but towards, I think, the situation in itself, the fact that it's not resolved. They don't have a full team yet. Obviously, Kaminga's agent, Aaron Turner, doing all the things that he's tweeting out and jumping on podcasts, all this stuff. It feels like that probably for the Warriors to be the best version of themselves and for Kaminga to be the best version of themselves. That probably should come to an end before the calendar year gets out, unfortunately. So, let's do a quick. I'm gonna save it. I'll save the Hawks till later. Taylor's Taylor will be back on the pod here later this week. We'll talk Hawks then. Quick sports tech updates. Really just two here to kind of round out, like I said, a little solo pod here. So nice quick listening while you're in the car or chilling at your desk. Mercury 13 in the news a couple times here. First is they acquired a majority stake in Bristol City Women, establishing its presence in leading women's football. Shout out to them there. Yeah, really cool. Obviously, they've been in the news because of their acquisition of FC Como Women back in 24. So really kind of continuing to expand on that market, getting into Bristol City. They also did something really cool as well that I saw I think I saw this over the weekend, but they collaborated with Olska Green, who's a co-founder of Fashion AI School, and they launched a 12-piece essential collection designed entirely by artificial intelligence. Olska Green used multiple AI models to design the collection in less than a month. The AI technology not only developed the apparel, but also generated the visuals for the e-commerce campaign, including diverse models. So really cool to see there. I believe they showcased this at a fashion something. I messed that up a little bit, but I saw, like I said, I saw it over the weekend, but I was like in between Ryder Cup and football. But wanted to shout that out. Love when we see stuff like that kind of popping up within women's sports. The next one is Apollo announces the launch of Apollo Sports Capital, which is going to be a new investment business providing capital solutions across the global sports and live events ecosystem. Al Tylis, who is a seasoned sports investor and executive, has been named Chief Executive Officer of ASC. So shout out to them. They're going to predominantly be in credit and hybrid opportunities in the sports landscape, spanning franchises, leagues, venues, media, events, and more. Lastly here, Sports Illustrated tickets, which I didn't know they had. Sports Illustrated tickets, 50 million credit facility secured for advancing growth initiatives. It's pretty big. I mean, I think we've talked about tickets a few times. There's been a few, Ticket Rev and others, that have kind of jumped into the space. Obviously, it feels like there's room with how Ticketmaster and others have kind of done and operated their businesses over the last few years. So this new credit is a crucial step for Sports Illustrated tickets, enabling them to pursue several key strategic objectives, such as like sports, concerts, theater enthusiasts, and to increase their inventory, which they hope to be around the 2.5 billion in value across their diverse entertainment categories. So yeah, like I said, really interesting. I think just as we obviously we're in that time of sports where sports really kind of takes off here in the fall, from football picking up, basketball, hockey starting. But you've kind of seen it. It was weird to see Kid Rock was on talking about like making ticket prices great again. So weird, right? But there is this, I think, this idea that like, yeah, I mean, so many artists make money from ticket sales across their concerts, and so having more people in this space now, it's gonna be interesting to see yeah, how that does from a venue and kind of music perspective. Obviously, there's more sports as well, right? So there's more inventory for events. So yeah, like I said, interesting to see Sports Illustrated tickets jumping in here, and wanted to highlight their $50 million credit. As always, continue to listen, rate, subscribe to the Seed Talk podcast. We are also opening up on the Sports Tech Atlanta side. We're opening up a few slots on our advisory. We've got a few things just came open as we finished out some projects. So we are looking for a few short and long-term partners there. So if you're in the need for advisement within sports technology, reach out to us. Would love to learn what you're doing. And you can follow me at SteamAc across all the platforms. Follow us everywhere as well: YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, all the things. And we'll see you in the next edition of the Seed Talk Podcast.